Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back in with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Gooner Talk podcast, our weekly episode where I chat to a couple of the podcast regulars and get their thoughts on what has been the fallout from the weekend's events. Not the most positive of performances or results, shall we say. There was definitely positives and we're going to go into those, but it didn't get the result that we quite wanted, and it ended up us down to 10 men, which we're definitely going to go into as well. But I'm joined by two fantastic people to go through all of that and, of course, get your thoughts in our live comment box as well. Thank you ever so much for tuning in. Kenny Ken, how you doing, mate? It's been a while, but glad to have you back, son.
You've done me a favour, actually, because at the moment my daughter's got the ridiculous program called Love Island on, and if I can give rubbish like that a miss, I'm very glad to be on here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Also, most
Mrs. is downstairs watching it now.
oh dear. Well, make sure it's not a topic of conversation.
Yeah, it's it's a nice escape for people that don't want to have to sit through and watch that. I reckon there's going to be someone in the chat a little bit later on going, wait, that's on now, I've got to run. But yeah, no, it is what it is. Raph, how you doing, fella?
I'm good. See, it just shows how much I love you, mate, because I'm missing Love Island, to be honest.
Oh dear.
You're one of those.
I am. I can't lie. Last year was the first year, but I don't know. I just got hooked.
Oh, was it? See, I watched the last two, but that last one put me off it, I think, for good.
Oh, really? Every day.
Michael Hernandez in the chat. Evening, mate. Goose, Arsenal Granny, Kitchener's in there, Gianni's in there, Matt Hales, thank you ever so much for tuning in. Joseph, Johnny Buttons, thank you ever so much, all of you, for tuning in. Kenny, I'm going to start with you, mate, because both of you were at the game, but Kenny, being there at Palace, I quite enjoy the trip to Palace, and we were talking about it before we came on air, but there's always that sense of it's a real tough place for Arsenal to go. We've always struggled to get results there. So coming out with a draw overall, are you happy, or are you thinking we should have and could have earned a lot more from it?
I think in the context of the full 90 minutes of points, fair enough. But I think what the worrying thing about Arsenal is that there are some encouraging signs. You know, Arteta's keeping it simple. You know, he's getting us pressing when we're out of position, and also he's getting numbers forward. And because we're controlling midfield and controlling little space, we're having more time on the ball. However, he has to be concerned about the lack of cutting edge in the last third, because we're not scoring enough goals. We're relying heavily on Aubameyang to get our goals. We're not getting goals from the midfield to someone like Ryan Ramsey will give. And Lacazette, it's like I remember watching something about 20 years ago about Rullit, when he was talking about strikers being fresh in the penalty area. I think when you look at Lacazette, he works so hard off the ball, brings players into play, that when he does have his chance in the last third, two things that I notice is that, you know, he's fluffing it because he's probably he's not fresh where he should be. He's fresh outside the box. Another thing as well, his body shape's all wrong. When he does get the ball, he's always got his back to goal. He has to turn and get a good angle for a shot. Whereas Aguero or Harry Kane, and Aubameyang, they're in the right position where the keeper's making a save. That's one concern I do have about our players, that we're not killing teams off.
Yeah, I think that when we're not, at the stage, I still feel like we're at a stage in our development under Arteta where we just need to try and get him playing the philosophy that he wants to deploy in this side. And yes, you're completely right, we do need to kill teams off, but creating chances was always our biggest issue under Unai Emery. We could never really get enough. So the fact that we're actually taking the lead in a game and not having to come back from going down is progress in my mind. It is now defensively where we need to look at sort of really tweaking things, maybe improving things with personnel, but improvements in players like Socrates, so there is hope. I think that we can get to the stage where, as you say, Kenny, we can start thinking about trying to kill off games. But just taking that early lead and holding that is going to be really key to what sort of success we have going forwards this season. Raph, Johnny Buttons in the chat said, soon as Torreira came off, it drastically changed. And for me, I said on the Raw Reaction show yesterday that was the big turning point of the game. How important is that little Uruguayan to what Arteta wants to deploy?
Yeah, very, very important, because I think what it is, excuse me, I think he just senses danger. And I think what it is when he plays, I think the way Arteta has now changed our approach. And if you see what Xhaka does, he pulls out to the left, and Kolasinac goes forward, and then Aubameyang goes inside. When Guendouzi plays instead of Torreira, Xhaka has to be a little bit more have a bit more of a defensive awareness. I think it slightly hamstrings what he wants to do or what Arteta wants him to do, because he has to think a little bit more about Guendouzi, because Guendouzi's natural instincts isn't to be defensive. He is more of a deep line playmaker. He will try and make things happen from deep. He'll even engage in forward play. Whereas Torreira has actually realized that, he's going to sit there and he's going to sense danger. So when other teams get the ball in transition, he's in a good space defensively to affect what's going on. Don't know what just happened with Tom there, but
he'll be back.
Yeah, he's in a good space defensively to pick it out, and I think that was one of the major differences. I also think that it didn't help that they pressed a lot more. They were a lot more engaged when they didn't have the ball than in the first half, and I think Torreira would have been a good player in that than to have Guendouzi. Also, Torreira does something really well, is he wins a lot of fouls. So he wins a lot of fouls by just nicking the ball, probably because he's so small, in areas that just gives us a little bit of a respite when we're under a bit of pressure. And I think little things like that, little bits of kind of being like intelligent defensively, is what we lack when he doesn't play, as well as the defensive awareness. So I think we need a midfielder, not only just because Torreira is good or not. It's just the fact that he's an anomaly in our squad. I don't know what the youth team's like, but at the minute we have no one else that senses danger from a midfield standpoint that still allows us to play the way that we want to play.
Sorry about backing out there, so I missed part of what you said. But
yeah,
I'll do that thing where you close down all your tabs on the top of your screen just to make sure your connection's flowing, and then you actually go, "Oh, I've closed down the program I was using to run the podcast." Very professional. But I just, in what you're saying there, and going back talking about Torreira himself, when we were getting linked with him moving to either Milan and then Napoli, and I get that the guy was really unhappy. I get that the guy didn't want to be here playing in the role that he was being asked to under Unai Emery. So now that we've got Arteta putting him in the right place is so key. It's so key to making sure these players are happy. Another player, Kenny, that is happier since Arteta has taken over is the man yesterday. He came out in the home game against United in the programme notes saying that he wanted to stay, and that was great. So you want to see someone who's saying that sort of stuff, able to have a good run in the team, score a few goals. He started off really well because he did that. He did score a goal. But then we know what happened. Then he decided to have a bit of a funny moment. And I'm interested to get your thoughts, because I've still seen, even though to me it is the most dead-on red card I've seen in a long time, I've seen a lot of people still think that it isn't. What was your take on that decision?
Well, the thing about it, right, is that what's happened is that I was on the other side near the trainers where they sit, and the first thing I looked at is I could see Maya trying to shield the ball. He wasn't going anywhere, and I just saw the challenge being made. And I said to myself, please, don't make the challenge. If you could just stand there, jockey him, and let him pass it to like the left to the right back, and then we can get players in position. Do not make a tackle. You don't need to make the tackle. You know what I mean? He's going nowhere. As soon as I saw him in the clump to the floor, I just thought, all right. The referee's given them a yellow card, and I was thinking, okay, that's fine. It wasn't as bad as I thought. And then when I heard, VAR, we're going to have a check on it. You know what you're like in the ground. People send little messages, and they're saying to you, it's a red. And so you don't even notice the red. And then for something that I thought was really extraordinary was the actual video at Selhurst Park actually showed a tackle. As soon as I saw that, I went, Not a chance, mate. There's no way you can defend a tackle like that. That can end someone's career. He's got to go. He's got to go. But the biggest thing is, the referee is right in front of it. Why did he not make that decision? He didn't need to make the VAR. You know what I mean? He should have been in that position where he sent the player off. He's seen the tackle. How can a tackle be that dangerous that you're in front of, that you can't, you're waiting for VAR to send him off?
Do you think the refs are now like using it as backup? So they're making the safe choice, and then they're leaving the VAR. Because in my mind, if a ref does that, if a ref has made a decision, no matter what he's made, sometimes I feel like because of human error and just how we are, the people at Stockley Park are going to take the ref's decision into consideration, into the decision that they make themselves. So if he himself has made this choice to think that no matter what decision I make, Stockley Park's going to change it, in my mind, that's not always going to happen. So them not being good enough to make the right decision in the right place at the right time puts more doubt on the refs. And seeing that Stockley Park changes those decisions, I think undermines the quality of those referees. Not that I don't.
But the thing about that is you see a lot of those tackles, right? And the minute, because one of the thing is ever since I've been watching football, especially in like late 70s and the 80s, one of the prohibited challenges that you never liked was the over-the-top tackle. That was an over-the-top tackle. The ball was nowhere. He's come from behind where the guy's trying to shoot the ball. Now, saying that is a decision that hurt the team. I know, like, Aubameyang probably didn't mean it, but my action is, if he can't make a tackle and can't go for the ball, right, then don't put yourself in a position where if someone's got quick feet, you make that tackle. The minute you make that tackle and it's with studs, you're asking for trouble. You really ask for trouble. The referee bottled that yesterday. You know, but really and truly, one of the biggest concerns is that we've lost a player who's in form, and we've got some critical matches because despite all the enthusiasm for Mikel's tenure in the job, we're still where we are when he took over. We still haven't made the sufficient progress in terms of points-wise, performance-wise. There are some encouragements, but we'll discuss that later. But to lose a player like Aubameyang is critical because you've got a player now like Lacazette who is working his heart out for the team, but in the areas where we need, he's not scoring goals. We've got Edin Nketiah who's lost a bit of confidence because he wasn't getting game time at Leeds. So it's going to be very interesting in the next 3 games what's going to happen because really and truly, Sheffield United are going to be very physical, Chelsea, and then you had a cup game, where I think we need to win a cup. Aubameyang hasn't helped us here. He's hurt us big time with that decision. Very, very rash decision. And the only losers really are Arsenal. No one else. There's no good saying, oh yeah. I know people in the comments are going to say, what about Robertson's tackle at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium against Liverpool? No, to do with us. First and foremost, that tackle, whatever happens at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, doesn't hurt Arsenal. What happened at Selhurst Park hurts the club. Secondly, it was a different challenge. But that is my take of the situation. You've got to learn to be a bit more cute there, Aubameyang.
Yeah, I think it's just a rush of blood. I know what he's trying to do, and I know that obviously, to be honest, in my mind, it is a consequence of. I don't want to turn around and say it's Arteta's fault because it's not, but you know what I'm trying to say. It is a consequence of these players wanting to get more stuck in, want to get the ball back as quickly as possible, and they're enthusiastic about trying to do that. And that has led to Aubameyang making an error and going into that tackle and ultimately getting a red card, which means he misses 3 games. One of them's against Chelsea, which is a huge one. Raph, I'm interested to know what you think about what this actually is going to be in terms of the impact it will have, because whilst Aubameyang wasn't playing in his best position up front, Lacazette has been given that role almost indefinitely by Arteta, he was still having a huge impact. He looked dangerous on the left, cutting inside. He scored a goal, and that interplay with Lacazette is really key. It's most likely that Martinelli, as Javier says in the chat there, is going to be the guy that steps up and goes in there. I mean, barring the fact that he could go after the Brazil's under-23s, but fingers crossed he doesn't. How concerning is this for us, and how much of an impact would it have over these next 3 games?
I think if you could have picked 3 players in Arsenal's team that you wouldn't have wanted this to happen, I think Aubameyang would have been in everyone's 3. I think that it's a big loss in that he is literally at the minute almost like the only person that's scoring at a consistent basis. And Lacazette's not in great form. And the issue, and I've always said this about Lacazette, Lacazette always scores difficult goals. If you look at the goals that he scores, the majority of his goals are difficult goals, back to goal, turns, shimmies, knocks it maybe top corner, or it's a good strike. And while that's good, that's the reason why he won't score maybe the 30, 40 goals, because he doesn't score tap-ins, doesn't really score rebounds. His movement in the box isn't amazing. And I think that hamstrings him from actually getting a tap. And you see Kane, Aguero, Sterling, Aubameyang, they score a lot of easy goals, but they're not easy goals. It's because their movement allows them to get there. And I think Lacazette struggles with that. And he, like, you know, I was at the game and he's 2 yards out. He just has to score there. He literally just has to score. And I think that's the only issue that I have. And I think what it could be is that Arteta could easily go from starting really well, not necessarily getting points, not getting points in the Chelsea game when maybe we could have. The Bournemouth game, we were the better team, didn't get the win. Against Palace, first half, we were exceptional, I'd say, for 35 minutes. Still saw out the first half without much problems. I had maybe one shot. Second half was a bit more difficult, but if Aubameyang doesn't get sent off, I still firmly believe that we win that game. But it now goes from that to being, we've only beat Man United and Leeds. Sheffield United aren't going to be easy. Chelsea away is always a tough game. And it then starts looking like, well, hang on a sec, you've only won 2 out of 7, or you've only, and that's the worry that I have. And people start to maybe get on his back a little bit when it's clear that you can see that he's made a good difference, a big difference. You can see what he's trying to do. You see the players are all playing for him. And I just don't want it to get to a stage that because we lose our goals, even games when we're looking like the better team, because let's face it, under Emre, we were even lucky to get draws because most teams were peppering us. Most teams would have more shots and it could have been 5-2 and we luckily scraped a 2-2. Whereas now we're getting the more clear-cut chances, even down to 10 men. Pepe hits the post, Lacazette misses from 2 yards. We could have still won, but we didn't. And if we don't beat Sheffield United, there's pressure on the Chelsea game. You don't win that, it starts to look like, okay, well, have we made it a change? And we have, but the results are currency ultimately. And I just don't want it to get away from us a little bit, where Arteta's in trouble when he doesn't need to be, or he shouldn't be.
Yeah, it really worries me that if during this period we don't pick up a few wins, that there will be that big negative build-up, and that will ultimately be unleashed on the manager. But for me, I've said this on the start, the Premier League is pretty much it's a write-off. It's not something that we can really look at this season and say that we've got something to aim for. I mean, you look at Europa League, maybe trying to get that qualification, but even without that next season, you can look on it and think that there are positive financial issues are there, and not getting that push from the finances of Europa League is important. But at the same time, having a season maybe out of that to focus on the league would help you get back into that top 4 and even possibly challenge third or second if you get the right players in during the summer under a manager that knows what he wants, or a system that he knows what he can get from these players with more time to recover from matches and less distractions. Maybe that can occur, but I just think that there needs to be European football at the same time to give you that extra focus, to give you that draw for certain players during the summer transfer window. And for me, that is going to come from the Europa League itself this season. We need to be in a position where we build up enough form, where the players are playing well, where the system is working, that we can go up and face Olympiacos and really put a message across and absolutely turn them over. Because if we just scrape through against a side that are a decent side, this Greek team, they're no mugs, they're no one to be turning your nose up at, and we need to show that. So I'm hoping, as I come back to the original point to go full circle, that if we do drop some points and if there is the negativity that starts to grow, that will mean that I honestly think that sometimes the negativity does bleed into the players. We've seen it. I mean, the members managed to watch the interview I did with James Benge, and one of the things he spoke about during that interview was how that these players are they are checking comments, they are checking Twitter, and it affected them. He remembered talking about a previous player. It might have been, I think it was Bukayo Saka, 18-year-old kid, very young, very impressionable, and you see this online all the time. I know we come back to this a lot during these shows, talking about the negativity and what happens on social media. But Bukayo Saka has been affected in the past by some comments that have gone on social media, and that came from James Benz during our members' exclusive interview. And Kenny, when it comes back around to negative, I know that you're someone who himself has to deal with a lot of negativity on a very regular basis. What I can't quite hear you. You're muted at the moment. That's why.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you, mate. I can hear you. How do you think things need to change in terms of that? Because the negativity, I just don't want it building up around Arteta too quickly. I don't want it to just completely avalanche and go downhill too quickly, and then let it bleed into those players. What can we really expect anything to be different under Arteta in terms of the social media presence and how we react to things?
Not really, because I think the genie's out the bottle now. I remember that we had a manager, Arsene, there for a very long time. He divided opinion. There was this sort of a massive rush of enthusiasm and a genuine, well, it turned out to be ingenuine desire to show that they were loyal towards Unai Emery. It took one team selection for fans to turn Unai Emery in a sixpence, and I think you know which team selection we're talking about. It was actually a year to the day when the tide against Unai Emery started. It was very subtle at first, but eventually, after Baku, it became an avalanche of criticism and pressure on the players. And I think the thing with Arteta now, a lot of people now are looking for the days when we were on the front foot playing the football that that we were enjoying under Arsene for the first 10 years. And what's happened is that Arteta is seen very much as the, how do I say it? He's seen that actually in biblical terms, the Messiah, like I said, the great Messiah that's coming on a white charger to lead us into glory, and defeat the Romans, all the thing. And really and truly, what Mikel's doing at the moment is that he's just keeping things simple. He's giving the naughty boys and the good boys sweets, little cuddles. Even Pearson was doing that after the Watford game. Oh, let's cuddle a footballer. And I think that's a new approach, attacking football and give players cuddles. But in terms of young players, unfortunately, just because Saka's 18 years old and he plays for Arsenal, doesn't mean he's any different from another 18-year-old. He's still going to be, like I said, have the mentality of 18-year-olds. He's still going to want to go on social media. He's still going to want to hear what people think of him. He's still going to, thrive on praise. And he's probably going to be phoning his mates going, "Oh, look did you see my goal? Did you see that pass I did? Did you see that assist I did?
Yeah.
Oh, boy, man." And then, or he said, "Look, all these comments, man. They love me. He's 18 years old. So really and truly, you can... What the point I'm getting to, right, really, is that results govern everything. You can have all the great play in the world. You can have all the enthusiasm you want. But if the results go south, then fans will have doubts because we are so starved at success. We haven't won the league since 2004. Haven't even looked like winning it. Plus, we've watched Man City go past us. We've watched Chelsea go past us. And now we're having a situation where Spurs have gone past us. But because they're going through transition as well, they're in a situation where they're probably stagnating as well. But again, until Arsenal start challenging for the league or winning it, or until we win a Champions League or challenge for it, you'll get a lot of negativity on social media. You'll have divisions, because you're going to have people who are going to want to genuinely support the club, people who are going to want to be genuinely patient, and people are going to think, well, you know what, I want it now. You know what I mean? And that's what you're going to have from now. But you've got to remember one thing, Tom, though. I was talking to her very well, Claire, who used to be on here before, and she said that, that's right, Claire Wheeler. And she said to me one time when we were outside the pub, and she said, "Ken, you do know that in terms of Arsenal support, social media, i.e. Twitter, YouTube, only covers about 3% of the fan base. is not as big as we make out. It's because it's in our face, and because people like retweeting things. We actually think it's more important than what it is. I know half the people who don't even know what Twitter is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they could be people more positive towards a club. But I think what's happened with social media is that because people are interacting with you and because people are abusing you or criticising you and you don't know who they are, it puts in a situation where it affects you psychologically because you're thinking, well, hang on here, they don't know me as a person. I'm trying my heart out. I'm giving it, but this guy's thinking I'm having a good game, or this guy is saying I've had a bad game whilst my coach is still picking me. It puts doubts, and is my coach trying to get me out of bad form? And I think what players need to do is if you really, really, really want to be concentrated in the job that you're paid to do, stay off social media. You don't need the adulation or approval of fans like me, you, and Raph. The only most important person you need to impress is your coach. As long as your coaches tell you what to do, then or guide you in the same way, you'll be fine. A fan like me is not going to improve your performance or improve your career moving forward. You know what I mean? I could cheer for you, but I mean nothing to you. And the sooner the players realise that, then the better they'll be as human beings and footballers.
It's a big point that you raised there about like the young players that crave like feedback, because for me, even speaking to someone not as a player but just in general, everyone craves feedback. Like after a video, the next morning I'll be scrolling through the comments and 99% of them are really, really great comments, but there'll be one comment in there that's a little bit critical and you're like, that's the guy I'm listening to. that is the person that I'm listening to. I'll use an example, right? People know I'm a teacher and have known for quite a while now. But when I was, when you start as a teacher, you go around and you do like observations to sort of like help with your profession and look what other teaching styles are. And I went into this lesson and the teacher in the room wanted to show about negativity and humanity. And it was an English lesson. And he put down 5 calculations on the board and he was writing them down. And the first calculation, it was like 5 add 3 is 8 or whatever, really simple ones. First one he wrote down was wrong. The first of the 5. The other 4 were correct. The first one that he wrote down was wrong. And whilst he was writing down the others, he was looking around the class, you could see the students like giggling and all that because he's got one wrong. And when he gets to the end, he turns around, he's like, why are you laughing? And so one of the students points out that, oh, well, you got one of them wrong, sir. And he's like, right, so I did 4 things right, and you focused on the one thing that I got wrong. And that is the world that we live in. And unfortunately, we could go on a run of several games, and as soon as we drop points, that'll be a huge hit because the negatives we focus on so much more than we do about the good things. Speaking of which, I do want to talk about some of the good things. I know we've spoken about Torreira yesterday, but Ainsley Maitland-Niles, Raph, has come on so much since Arteta has taken over. He had Zaha in his pocket, and for me, Zaha is someone who's been very, very tricky to deal with on a game-by-game basis with his skills, but he did fantastically well. Is there, with the concerns around Bellerin's fitness and how he's returned from his ACL, does this kid who's proclaimed that he wants to be a centre midfielder, he's not a right back, is there a chance now that this person and this Ainsley Maitland-Niles can be considered to be Arsenal's first choice right back moving forwards, even with Bellerin's possible return?
Yeah, I think in short answer, if he keeps playing the way he is, then yeah. I mean, I was obviously I went to the game and on our side, like obviously Kenny, you would have seen it as well. On that side, you could really see it was a bit further down, but you could kind of see Zaha against Maitland-Niles in a lot, like in its kind of like in its entirety in the second half. And it was like, he literally just locked him up. I think there was one thing where the ball bounced over his head a little bit and he was a little bit casual. But aside from that, he literally played very well. And I think maybe what's happened is someone just got in his ear and said, look, you're playing for Arsenal. Like, you might not play as a centre midfielder, but as a right back, you generally got a chance to play games. And maybe the fact that he said that he doesn't want to play there, he got dropped, played right wing, didn't do too well, whatever, but he was just out of the team. Maybe he thought, well, hang on, yeah, I know I don't want to play there, but I want to play. And then he's now come back into the team and it's like, do you know what? I'll take whatever I can, and I'll embrace it because, he just looks like a new player. I think if you look at Maitland-Niles anyway, his makeup, his physical makeup, he's quick, he's strong, he's good on the ball. He looks like a prototype footballer, and he has all the attributes to be a good right back. Obviously, he'd have to improve on the defensive side of it, like his positioning and that. But one-on-one, he's not bad. I think sometimes he may get caught, like, giving a bit too much space on the cross because he doesn't want to get beat when he's too close. But aside from that, I think, and that stuff will come, I think he's got all the makings of being a good right back. And I think that the way Arteta plays, obviously the right back shifts into centre midfield sometimes when we're attacking. So he will be able to have some of the things that he wants to do in that position under Arteta. He may be able to fulfill that while still obviously being able to be be a decent right back in years to come. I think he's come on leaps and bounds, and I'm glad that he's getting at least a little bit of praise because he got a lot of stick when he wasn't playing so well. So I think now that he's playing well, I think it's important to give people their flowers. But I mean, I think hats off to him in the way that he's come back and the way that he's come back into the team and then really just improved. He just looks like a different player. I was going to say also, just on Kenny's point, not to take up too much time, but I think I think Ainsley Maitland-Niles also suffered with the social media backlash. And what you've got to understand, I think for that era especially, they've pretty much grown up and there hasn't not been social media. So like someone like yourself, you've grown up in a time, and even myself to a degree, I remember a time when there wasn't social media and it wasn't like, literally everything is on my phone. Yeah. So
you go pick up and you discuss the game. That's what you would do.
Exactly. So I think it's a lot more difficult now to just not take it in because I think they've grown up maybe from a 10-year-old, a 9-year-old. As soon as they've had a phone, Twitter's been there and Instagram's been there or Facebook's been there. So I think it's just ingrained in their psyche. So I don't think they can just simply just come off of social media. I think there's got to be a way that they can, I guess, harness it or chaperone it so that it doesn't affect them the way that it affects them now. So maybe it is just, I don't know, blocking people, or they only go on it for a certain period of time, or for the first day, just don't go on social media. And then I don't know what it is, but I think to eliminate it for these like young players in particular, it's just unrealistic because it's like us just, I don't know, not watching TV. I don't know. I just probably do it, if you get what I mean, just completely.
I think that like we talk about the younger generation a lot, and sometimes the classic excuses when you see all this abuse on social media and that is that it's just because they're young and whatever. But these young supporters are so important to the future of this generation because these supporters, you could argue, some of the really young ones have only known Arsenal not as the successful side of the Invincibles and of the George Graham era and that, but they have still chosen, be it through family, be it through children. So I think it's a fair criticism that genuinely social media makes it very, very easy, especially for a lot of the younger generation, to be able to feel anonymous and to voice their frustration. Trust me, they're not the only ones. There are plenty of 40-year-old idiots that still post a hell of a lot of abuse online. But they are, I want to stress that the younger ones are still so key moving forwards. And I have a lot of respect for that a lot of them support Arsenal at a choice, even though we're not the big successful side that we used to be. I remember when you used to support Arsenal as a kid when I was growing up, you'd be called a glory hunter. God, I wish those days were still here. But yeah, it's an important point, and I think that it is important to cover on social media. But yeah, going back to the original point on the positive side of things, there are still certainly the areas like we talk about Ainsley Maitland-Niles, Kenny. The other side is obviously Kolasinac. Now, Kolasinac has been someone who himself has received a hell of a lot of criticism over the time for his defensive abilities, and that is still under consideration. Or it's not even under consideration. We know that he has defensive frailties, but it seems so key to what Arteta wants to deploy in this team. He was up and down that left flank so much. It was an absolute nuisance. How important is that wing play then for Arteta, and how much have you been impressed by the Bosnian?
I think one of the things Arteta did well against Man United is that he managed to keep their win over Man City in the memory bank. And by doing that, what he did is he doubled up on them on their flank players. Players like Rashford and Danny James, as well as Martial, who get deployed down there as well. And a very important person in that was Kolasinac. And he's managed to get Kolasinac in a situation where he's bombing down. And he's kind of improved his defensive play as well, because he's another one who was very vulnerable. Because when we first brought him to the club, we only saw him as a left wing back. And then we had the situation where we were very excited about Kieran Tierney. He was the next best thing. He was as good as Robertson up in Scotland. And we kind of wanted a situation where we wanted to sell Kolasinac. But again, he has benefited a lot from Arteta. And if you look at the way Kolasinac plays, he's actually playing with injury, which makes his performances all the more remarkable. I was watching him against Leeds at the Emirates, and the guy was limping. You could see that he was like limping. He was running gingerly, but when it was ready for battle, he was ready to play. And I think what it is that it's giving by his form is actually helping Saka, because what's happening now is that you don't have to rush Saka into these sort of big games. What you can do is that you can get Kolasinac playing. He responded to. He's one of those players that who I say that has had sweets from the new teacher. Little cuddles and everything. And I think he's responded very much to that. And his form has changed my mind as well. From an offensive point of view, he's always a player that I've always liked, because he's managed to get on the ball and put dangerous crosses in. But defensively as well, his position is getting a lot better. And he's as tough as old boots. One of the things you need in any situations like that, you need someone who's, how do I say it? You need a rogue, the sort of person, right, who, even if your teammates are wrong, he's going to go there and back you. And what he's going to do, he's going to change every decision. He's going to, he doesn't want to, he's not one of those people who says, right, Arsenal's got a reputation as a soft reputation, and teams think they can come to the Emirates or these low league teams think they can kick us apart. Well, right now, I'm the ball. I'm your David Warner type of player who's going to say, right, I'm having this. I'm the one who's going to take it to your position. I'm the one that if you found my mate, I'm going to go up to you and say, right, you do that again. I'm going to have you in the next challenge. And I think that's what he does bring to the team, is that he brings a toughness and a sort of a roguishness to the football team. Also, most importantly, as a left back, he's improved wholeheartedly. Oh, you've got to give Unai Emery some credit, because there were times when, he was showing some good form as well under Unai Emery, but that kind of goes under the microscope, because all bets were off after the Sheffield United with Unai Emery, and even probably after Baku. So Unai Emery doesn't get enough credit for me for the development of not just Kolasinac, but Ainsley Maitland-Niles. There were times when Unai Emery was selecting Ainsley Maitland-Niles, he was trying to bring him through as well, and he was playing. He was improving under Unai Emery, but that all gets forgotten because Arteta is this Messiah, type figure on the white charger who's going to, get his sword of truth and get rid of the Romans. And Unai Emery is just this, you know what I mean? And that's pretty sad for me, really, that the man doesn't get enough credit, because really he was a victim of the fact that he didn't have enough credit in the bank because he wasn't Arsene Wenger or he wasn't a big name manager. Just my opinion.
Yeah, no, and that's fair enough, mate. And that's fair enough. I can't disagree too much there. What you said, I'm pretty much side with that as well. We're going to have our section of questions for the next 10 minutes or so before we get into our predictions. So if you'd like to throw in a question, please throw it into the chat box. We're going to start off with a question from one of our members. If you'd like to become a member and also get your badges and exclusive content, we've already brought up that I had a discussion with Football London's James Benge earlier on in the week, and he gave us loads of inside info about Upper Meccano, the stuff we talked about Bukayo Saka and his social media presence as well. So if you want to get that info, make sure you click that join button. You can only do it on your desktop, though. For some reason, it doesn't work on phones. But Avon, one of our members, has asked a question, Raph. Do you think Ceballos has a future at AFC?
It's a tough one. I think we won't really know until he's like fully fit, because I think what's happened is he got injured and then obviously Arteta's come in, but we don't know a fully fit Ceballos if he you know, if he likes him. He spoke about him quite highly, but he didn't speak about him like he was going to come straight back in the team. He spoke more from a sense of he has to prove himself. I think he's been a bit indifferent, if I'm honest. He's had a couple good, good showings. Like obviously, the Burnley game, he was good. The Tottenham game, second half, he was good. But there's been a couple of games where he wasn't good. So it just depends on how he responds to Arteta's. He seems like the way he plays, you would think that he'd be good in Arteta's system because he's open to press. He can keep the ball well. He can do all of those things. But I think considering his ability, he doesn't assist, score. He doesn't create as many chances as you would think, and I think that he's got to improve in that sense. And I think the money that he's going to cost, you just really have to see. I think he does have a future, but I think it will really depend on the next couple of months and how he gels with Arteta. But you know, it's interesting. We may need another midfielder a bit more, but I don't know. It's really a toss up with Ceballos. But I think I would say yes, but just on the knife edge, on a thread.
Yeah, I think that it's really like when we first watched him against Burnley, he looked great. Like he was throwing out the tricks, he was confident, and I think a lot of that was stamped out during his time under Unai Emery. You look at the players that came in. He wasn't an expressive manager. He didn't want the players to do what they're best at, it seemed, and just wanted them to play the way that he felt was the best way to get a result. And that didn't really include Ceballos too much. Then he got injured. He's come back, and he's not really been in the mind of Arteta, it seems. I'm not sure if he actually even fits what he wants from his system. If you look at the midfield that we've got, and this will segue quite nicely into the next question, is that we've got Ozil at 10. Ceballos can play there, but he's not going to oust Ozil in this Arteta side because Arteta likes Ozil so much. You've then got Granit Xhaka and Torreira. Well, Torreira you need desperately to be that little terrier at the back, mopping up, intercepting. Now, the only other player you can think of is Granit Xhaka that he could actually replace. But if you replace Xhaka with Ceballos, whilst I think it gives you a lot more going forwards, it would leave us a lot more exposed going in the other direction. I think you'd also lose that ability to spray passes out to the wide areas rather effectively. And for me, I just can't see Ceballos getting into this midfield right now. I'm not sure it's worth, on the reported fee of around 40 million quid, to get him next season. I think there are better players to go for, players that would suit what Arteta wants from us. If you would have said to me at the start of the season, do I want to sign Arteta? I would have been behind it 100%. But now seeing the situation that we're in now, opinions change. And speaking of one of those midfielders that looks a lot better than him right now, Yonit Mac, Kenny, says, do you think that, do you guys want Xhaka to stay after the summer? I still don't think he's right for us, and I don't think we'll win anything with him in our midfield, even though he's been good recently.
Yeah, it's a good question because I think when Unai Emery brought Xhaka back in the side, Xhaka had shown some form. You know, people were critical of me because I gave him a high mark after the game at the London Stadium. But what Xhaka did at that game, he gave us a lot of control, and he was quietly getting back into form after he had his difficulties. And what's happened under Unai, what's happened since he's come out the side as well, is that he has been playing well. You know, he's cutting out the silliness, like the rash challenges, and he isn't caught on the retreat, which he was caught a lot of times. And I think a lot of that is probably to do with having Torreira alongside him. They kind of complement each other, and it's given Granit the protection that he needs in order to sort of give the midfield a bit more control than they had under Unai Emery. Because I think when he plays with Matteo Guendouzi, he's going to be a good player, may I say, in the future. The thing with Matteo Guendouzi is that he's very ragged and slovenly in his approach when we don't have the ball, especially when teams are on the counter-attack. He's always jogging past. And what's happening now, because he's always jogging past, it means Xhaka has to do two people's jobs in terms of like the defensive side of things. And I think that kills his game. Because you noticed yesterday when he didn't have Torreira alongside him, Chiesa was getting in his face a lot more, giving him no space. You know what I mean? Because Palace did a number on Torreira, by the way. They kicked him off the park because they knew that the only way to grab control of the match was take off our best midfielder. And I think that's where Granit has come back into form. In terms of him staying long term, I generally believe that he's he's not what we need moving forward in terms of what's suited in the Premiership, and I think he'll probably be better and more comfortable playing in the German leagues or maybe the Italian leagues, where they have more time on the ball, where again he'll have the requisite protection, because those leagues are more tactical. Saying that, it's up to Unai Emery. His agent has been saying one thing. Arteta has been saying that he wants to keep him. So we just don't know. We won't know until like the summer. But if you want me to ask me, I think what we'll need in midfield is someone like another Santi Cazorla, because without him, our midfield has suffered from a very offensive point of view. We don't have control in the midfield, like we used to have when he played. Another thing as well, the player that has suffered since Santi Cazorla has been injured and left the club is Mesut Ozil, because they had a good little partnership where he was the brain of the side, but what he did is that he stopped Ozil from coming into midfield. You could play if you had a midfield like Jorginho or Santi Cazorla, then Mesut Ozil, you probably see better football from Mesut Ozil. You know what I mean?
I think the biggest loss of Santi Cazorla going is you saying Santi Cazorla enough.
No, let me finish. Let me finish. It's Santiago Cazorla.
Oh, I've missed that. No, but that's a really key point. Having that connection between Ozil and someone slightly, even as creative as him behind him, and that obviously always links back to the Ceballos point. Is that I thought Ceballos could have been that guy, that link, that Santi link, but I just don't think he offers enough to sacrifice someone like Granit Xhaka. Raph, let's try and smash through some of these quickly. Rakiza says, what are your thoughts on Socrates, considering his contract is up next summer? Do you boys think he should get a 1-year extension?
No. I think he's been really good. And I do like Socrates, but I think what it does, it just means that we're not going to get maybe somebody else. The only reason why I would consider it now is because of Chambers' injury. But aside from that, I would say no. I think we need a younger centre-back. I think we need to just go away from... I think Saliba's going to come in. We should get another one. You've got Luiz, you would have Holding, you would have Chambers. I think that's sufficient enough. I think Socrates has been much better, but I still think that he's not good enough to take us to where we want to be long-term, in my opinion. So I'd say no.
Lag says, do you think Torreira fits the Premier League, or do we need to buy someone bigger and stronger like Ndidi? Because I don't think Torreira is good enough for the Prem, says Lag. Kenny, what do you think?
Ndidi's probably more suited to the Premiership because he's got the physical presence, and he's got the ability to be a box-to-box midfielder. In that, Torreira kind of responded probably better to Unai Emery than he did under Freddie Ljungberg and Unai Emery, especially towards the end. But with the right manager, I think Torreira is a player that I've changed my mind on. He is playing well. It depends on him, really. Personally, I don't think he's acclimatised very well to the English way of life, and I just get this nagging feeling that he is hankering for a move back to either back to Italy or maybe a move to Spain, where it'll suit the way he wants to play and suits the culture or maybe the food. So moving forward, like I said, indeed he is a better DM for me than Torreira, and I can think of 3 or 4 better players than him. However, he's in good form at the moment.
I think. Just to add on. Sorry, mate. I just think that he's always going to be one of those players that every year is going to consider leaving. I just think he should go, to be honest. Not that he's a bad player, but I just think some players, they're just not suited to the league. They're just not suited to the way of life. And I think you could go and get a Samare or Sangare from France, who would be a bit more suited, maybe a bit cheaper than an Ndidi, or even a Decore that might come in and do a similar job, but want to be here. Like, he just always seems like he just wants to be somewhere else.
The thing about Decore is that I completely get what people are saying about he's a really he's shown at Watford and he's shown it in the Prem, but he's not for me. And I might be telling me if I'm wrong, but I just don't think he's an out and out DM.
Yeah, no,
I think he gives a more. I think he's more like in the Xhaka mold of player. than the out-and-out DM. And I'd rather, if we were going to let Torreira go out and, as you say, get one of those young French lads, or go out and buy someone who is an out-and-out defensive midfielder, because we just haven't. And people always say that we've desperately needed a Vieira type for years, but for me, that's off the mark, because I think we've needed a Gilberto Silva for absolutely years, not a Vieira type. So it's really, really difficult to try and find that player, because you always end up making the comparisons between old legends. But I think we just need to go out there and buy an out-and-out DM that is committed to the team and can get us there. I genuinely thought Christian Bielik had the potential to be that guy. I think I can hold my hands up and say that I've been wrong about that based on how he's doing at Derby this season. But maybe Arsenal could have done better, but who knows at the end of the day. But I do think you've got a fair point there. If Torreira is going to be that guy, it's going to be linked away all the time, that he's going to be unsettled, let him go. Get someone who's got a lot more chemistry with the team, better communication. I still think Torreira struggles with his English. So for me, I think, or French, because we've got a lot of French lads that maybe you can communicate with better. I think there is something in that with Torreira. Whilst I don't want to downgrade his quality, because he's a great player, I just think that maybe the grass is possibly greener elsewhere. Last couple before we wrap things up, Kenny. Danny from Burkout Wonderland says Lacazette has only scored 4 Premier League in 4 Premier League games this season. Will Alba being out help him score more goals?
Probably, because what it would do is that he'll be in a situation where, rather than play with his back to goal, he'll have someone like Martinelli and Pepe being the sort of, being the pace around him and trying to be the little creators around him. And probably he'll have Mesut Ozil. And then what he can do with his back to goal, he'd be in a situation where he'd be able to make those runs and, like I said, being where he can, like I said, make the keeper work. So that probably going to help him. Again, it's all about confidence, though, isn't it? Because he's doing the right things. He's working hard, but when you're missing chances, your confidence goes. But Danny, we're stuck. He's going to be the main man. And really and truly, right now, we need to find that confidence. Right, as of yesterday, you know what I mean? Because he is going to get chances, not as many as we would like, because we're still got some deficiencies in last third, but when a chance is coming to the Premiership, you've got to take them. So maybe being the main man at centre forward when he first came, it might help him. But the thing is, Danny, even when he was the main man, we weren't getting those 20 goals a season, were we, mate?
It's funny, because a lot of people said that we desperately needed a striker, 30-goal a season striker, back when we had Giroud and Walcott. And I tweeted out a while ago saying, do you think our attack has genuinely got better since we swapped Giroud and Walcott for Laka and Alba? Now, I'm not saying that these guys are not better than Giroud and Walcott, because they are definitely better than Giroud and Walcott. My point was that I don't think that as an attacking team, we've actually got any better since swapping them. I think that we've lacked goals from other areas of the pitch. And whereas Ramsey used to chip in with goals, Santi Cazorla used to chip in with goals, Ozil even scored more goals than he does these days. And for me, that has been a huge miss, is that we've often just bought players for the sake of buying players for their stature and their rep, rather than actually are they the right players for the system. I mean, we had Lacazette, and we went out and spent 50 million on Aubameyang, and when Wenger was in charge, and he said that he wasn't sure if they could play together. That's not really the intuitive signatures that I want to see made. Trust me, I'm happy to have them, but I just think we need to be a little bit more savvy in the transfer market. Before we go to predictions, Matthew de Souza. I know it's not about Arsenal, but it's certainly one that's playing on a lot of Arsenal fans' minds at the moment. He says, is injury the only thing that stops Liverpool from winning everything?
Not everything. I think they're going to win the league, injuries or no injuries.
Are you worried about the Invincibles? Are you worried?
I'm getting a little bit. I ain't gonna lie. I mean, it's like games that I just think they could lose. They're just getting less and less. Like, I thought Tottenham could potentially be a banana skin, maybe the next game, but I just don't see, because I can see them drawing. It's the losing. They're not even drawing now, so they might draw again.
I don't know about drawing.
And they're going to smash the points tally out the window. So it's going to just kind of, like, what do we have? Like, I'm praying that they don't do it, but I mean, I don't know.
It's a weird one because a lot of the things that was thrown at Arsenal was that we weren't very good in the Invincible season in terms of we had a lot of draws. We went out of the cups very easily, and the Premier League wasn't as good. But I think the Premier League this season has been shocking. Like the quality of teams has been shocking. And you could argue that these teams aren't as good as the Premier League sides when we.
I think. And I don't know if it's just because I'm an Arsenal fan, but I think a lot of people use things to discredit Arsenal now. It's easy to say like everyone has revisionist history, and it's easy to well they weren't that good. The Invincible team was unreal, and the only reason why if we had a competitive team in the mix, we would have won a lot more of those games. A lot of the games that we drew were towards the end when we just wanted to stay invincible, and the league was pretty much wrapped up anyway. So I think there's a bit of revisionist history with that. But yeah, this season's been really bad. Like Man City have burnt out a little bit, it seems. Leicester have been good, but they look like they're fading a little bit. Chelsea are indifferent, and obviously, well, you know what's happened with us and United and Tottenham. So yeah, this hasn't been a good league by any stretch of the imagination this year. And Liverpool actually haven't played that well, but they just keep winning.
Yeah, it's just no one can play well enough to beat him at the moment. That's pretty much how it is. Let's get a prediction then ahead of the Sheffield United game this weekend. Obviously, we couldn't get a win in Sheffield on our travels in the opposite fixture, but home game, we look a decent side at home under Arteta, and we've got 2 wins with 2 clean sheets there. So, Kenny, I'm going to go to you first, mate. Can I have a scoreline, please?
I'm going to go for 2-1 Arsenal. And only if we do what Man City and Liverpool did, i.e. score early goals, get in their faces, and match them physically, athletically and physically. We don't do any of that, then we're going to have a difficult time at the Emirates.
Okay. Raph?
2-1, Martinelli and a set piece. But the only caveat will be for me is Torreira. Obviously, if Torreira is injured, which it might be a bit more difficult, I'll be honest. So, but I'll still go with 2-1.
I think the reason that we lost at Sheffield was simply because they outfought us and our team weren't with it. And there's one thing that you can expect from this Arteta side, that is more fight. So I'm hoping that we can match them in that sense, and then we can let our quality come through. So I'm going to go for a 2-0 win for the Arsenal in a reverse game with a reverse scoreline. Zamir says 2-1 to the Arsenal with Ozil scoring. Matt Hales reckon 1-1. Stan Kroenke, nice to have you join us. It's nice that you're in here. Says 0-0. Joseph Pasecco says 2-1 Sheffield United. He's not feeling too confident. I know. It's just we can't get over this just this fear of losing at the moment, and things are up in the air, so I can't blame people too much for that. But yeah, I'm going to go for the 2-0, and that's where we're going to leave things. A huge thank you to all of you in the chat box for joining us this evening. I know that you have been absolutely pained, as Raph has, to miss out on Love Island, but I'm sure that you can watch it on catch up. It will be there for you, I'm sure. I'm going to go and watch something different now. But Raph, it's been a pleasure, mate, and I hope you can go and enjoy it on catch up now.
Cheers, mate. Definitely.
No problem with that.
He's getting up.
Yeah.
He's restless. He's looking around. Kenny, I hope you've enjoyed your tea throughout the show, because we've had a lot of comments about your slurping. So I hope
not at all. It's actually a Ribena in an Arsenal.
Oh, it's Ribena.
Because all the glasses
you don't drink anything else?
No, all the glasses are in a dishwasher. So, and you got to drink out of a clean utensil, haven't you?
Thank you for coming on. Appreciate it. We'll see you again very soon. Once again, thank you to everyone in the chat box. If you would like to become a member, like our good friend Avon there, and get your own badges in the chat, get access to exclusive content and interviews as well, then you can always join. It's like 99p a month, so you can go and check that out. Make sure you do it on desktop, because you can't do it on mobile at the moment for some weird reason. Hope you've enjoyed the show. Please subscribe to the channel if you're new around here, to drop a like as well if you've enjoyed it, and turn those notifications on so you can make sure that you catch these live shows and join us in the chat box. We'll see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.